Okay, hello. So this class is a summary of a Sicha on Parshas Teitzei and Perek Zayin of Tanya. Okay, so at the end of this week's Parsha, we find a very unique mitzvah, which is that we're supposed to remember the nation of Amalek. When the Yidden left Mitzrayim, Amalek was the nation that came to ambush the Yidden. And in the Torah it says, Zachar Asher Salcha Amalek, and at the end, when it speaks about this mitzvah, it says, Lo Sishkach, you should not forget. So because it says Zachar and Lo Sishkach, from here we learn that to remember Amalek is a mitzvah that we have to have in our mind constantly, that has to permeate us. We have to live with this mitzvah, and also we have to speak about it. So we have an obligation to remember it, to have the memory in our mind, and to speak about it verbally. And this is a constant mitzvah. And there's another mitzvah that we find that is very similar, which is also a mitzvah that we have to remember in our mind, and we have to verbally speak about it, and it's a constant mitzvah. And this mitzvah is to remember Shabbos. So to remember Shabbos and the mitzvah of remembering Amalek seem like two opposite things. So the Yidden asked Moshe Rabbeinu, how are we meant to keep both of these mitzvahs constantly? Why is it so difficult? Because the mitzvah of remembering Shabbos represents that Hashem created the world in 6 days and Hashem rested on the seventh. So we are affirming that Hashem is the creator and Hashem is the only power and Hashem is in control. And Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing other than Hashem. And the mitzvah of remembering Amalek seemingly is the opposite. Amalek represents a nation that knows Hashem and chooses to rebel against Hashem. So if a person is living with this mitzvah, with remembering Shabbos, that Hashem is the only one that's in control, how can this person at the same time have this remembrance of this entity, of this nation, which rebels against Hashem? Where is there room for both of these remembrances at the same time? So Moshe Rabbeinu's reply to the Yidden was that there are two cups. There's a cup of wine and there's a cup of vinegar. They're very different, but this one is a cup and this one is a cup. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu telling the Yidden? Moshe was saying that these two mitzvahs are actually not a contradiction. How so? Wine, we understand, is a very special drink. And wine represents the way of serving Hashem, of bringing godliness into this world, in the way of a tzaddik, in the way of doing Torah mitzvahs. You enjoy it, you love it, it's not a struggle. But then, Moshe Rabbeinu explains, there's another cup. There is another vehicle. There is another way to bring godliness into this world, to reveal Hashem to this world. It might not be the conventional way, but this way is compared to a cup of vinegar. And this way is through saying no to evil, through destroying Amalek. And where does vinegar come from? Vinegar actually comes from wine. When wine is spoiled, it becomes vinegar. So evil, Amalek, its source has to be good. Its source is from wine. So we have to we have to break Amalek and reveal the goodness even in the Amalek. And even through Amalek, through saying no to evil, we are able to actually serve Hashem and to reveal the godliness of Hashem in this world. And Hashem is so unlimited, and Hashem is so infinite that He has the ability to create a nation, a being, a creation that feels separate from Hashem, and this nation that can know Hashem and choose on purpose to rebel against Him. And this evil is not a competition to Hashem, chas v'shalom. Hashem created it. And why did Hashem create it? Because when we fight with it, when we fight Amalek, when we struggle with evil, there's something very special, there's something very precious about the struggle. The struggle has value. And actually, when we struggle, it actually helps us grow. So basically, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying that these two remembrances are not a contradiction one to each other. They're actually two means, two ways of how to reveal Hashem into the world. One way is through serving Hashem, the Torah mitzvahs, a holy way, a Shabbos way, doesn't take too much effort, l'avodah v'tzadik, that's beautiful and wonderful and great. But then there's another vehicle, there's another cup, there's another way, and that way is through saying no to the Yetzer Hara, through destroying the evil. That is another way of how we actually reveal godliness in this world. And when we go through history, anytime the Jews are persecuted, whether it be the Spanish Inquisition or the Holocaust, when Jews showed their faith, they're ready to give their life al Kiddush Hashem. This revealed godliness in this world. When the Nazis, they couldn't understand that as much as they tried to break the bodies of the Jews, they could not break their spirit. And when a Jew could go and against the rules, put on tefillin, or try to keep any of the mitzvahs in the concentration camps, for example, this was all revealing that there's Eibusher on this earth. A woman who had a brand new baby asked the Nazi for a knife and gave the baby a bris milah in front of the Nazi officer. That was defying, pushing the evil, and that revealed godliness in this world. And the struggle actually has so much value and is cherished so greatly by Hashem. There's a story of a Yid who was coming closer to Yiddishkeit, and he was coming closer and closer and trying to do more and more things, but there was something that was stopping him. And one day, he was speaking to his Chabad rabbi, and he said, I'll tell you the truth, I'm engaged to a non-Jewish girl, and therefore I can't commit totally to Yiddishkeit because of this. So the shliach encouraged him to go meet the Rebbe. And this young man, he said, I don't think that's going to help. My parents took me to many rabbis, and as much as I spoke to other rabbis, it didn't help me. And I wasn't able to break the engagement. So the shliach convinced him, and he ended up going to the Rebbe. And he told the Rebbe his problem, that he's coming closer and closer to Yiddishkeit, but what should he do? He's engaged to a non-Jewish girl. So the Rebbe said to him, I'm jealous of you. I'm envious of you. And the Rebbe wasn't just saying it to make him feel good. It was truth. It was the truth. The Rebbe was saying, you have an opportunity to sacrifice for Hashem, to your struggle to give up a non-Jewish girl for Hashem, that's something that I can't do because I don't have that desire. So when a person has a struggle, and is able to say no to the evil, say no to the Yetzer Hara, and to be able to sacrifice what they want for Hashem, that is very, very precious and very, very valuable to Hashem. And when the man heard this gave him the strength to actually to break the engagement and to become completely frum. So in our lives, when there is a struggle, we have to realize that it's actually an opportunity. It's actually an opportunity. It's actually a vehicle. It's actually a way to reveal godliness in this world. So the two are not contradicting each other. They're just two cups, two channels, two ways to reveal Hashem. And we have to remember both of them all the time. When a Jew is in a state of Shabbos, he's holy, he also has to remember Amalek. He always has to be on guard and make sure that Amalek doesn't creep in to his thought, speech, and action. And on the other hand, if a person feels that they fell so low, that they're in the clutches of Amalek, they shouldn't give up. They shouldn't despair, because they also have the mitzvah to remember Shabbos. This Jew has to know that not only could he break the klipa, break the evil, transform the darkness into light, but he could actually reach the level of Shabbos, of serving Hashem in a holy way. This leads us to Perek Zayin of Tanya. In chapter 1 through 25, the Alter Rebbe set up for us a perfect system for how to serve Hashem. After 25 chapters, come back to Alter Rebbe for a Yichidus, and we say it's not working. So Alter Rebbe says the reason why it's not working is because what's missing is simcha. If a person doesn't have joy, and they're not able to win over the Yetzer Hara. And in chapter 26 of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe gives a parable of two wrestlers. One is stronger and better trained, but he's in a bad mood, and therefore he loses. So we have to be happy, not just for the sake of happiness. We have to be happy in order to be healthy, in order to serve Hashem. So in chapter 26, Alter Rebbe discusses two different reasons why a person may not be happy, either because of material things or because of spiritual problems, and the person feels guilty for something that he did. And the Alter Rebbe explains how to overcome those problems. In chapter 27, the Alter Rebbe addresses shame. And what's the situation here? This person, in thought, speech, and action, he's perfect, but he feels ashamed because what's behind the thought, speech, and action is his seichel and his midas. And in seichel and midas, internally, he still has desires for things that are against Hashem's will. He's ashamed. Everyone says to him, "Oh, you're so wonderful and great," and he's thinking, "If only you knew what I really desire inside." And how could it be that I'm do so many good things, and I'm learning Torah, and I do so many wonderful things, and how could it be that I'm struggling so much inside? So the Alter Rebbe says to him, "Don't be sad." So we know that it's not good to be sad, because we know the vicious cycle. It's that being sad is actually a tactic of the Yetzer Hara, because when we're sad, we're not productive to serve Hashem properly. And we know the whole vicious cycle that happens when we feel guilty, and then we indulge in something that we wouldn't usually do, And then, and that thing is even worse than the thing that we even felt guilty for in the beginning. So we know that we shouldn't, that it's not good to be sad. But the Alter Rebbe says, not only don't be sad about the fact that internally you're not perfect and you have desires for other things, but rather you should be happy. Why should you be happy? So the Alter Rebbe explains that there are two different types of food. There is sweet food and there is savory food. How do we know this? We know from Yitzchak Avinu, when he sends Esav to go hunting, before he wanted to bless him. And he says, bring for me mata'amim, delicacies, and it's plural. So there's two different types. There's sweet and there's savory. And the avodah of a tzaddik to Hashem, that's like giving Hashem sweet food. And that's wonderful. But a person can't just live on sweets. Hashem wants more than just the avodah of a tzaddik. There's savory, there's salty, spicy, sour, and that represents the struggle. And the Alter Rebbe says that a person, the reason why he feels sad is because he doesn't know his place. He has to realize that he's not a tzaddik, he's a Beinoni. And the avodah of a Beinoni may be to struggle his entire life. But the Alter Rebbe explains that you should be happy because every minute of the struggle has great value and is very much cherished by Hashem. And therefore, every time you struggle, it's actually an opportunity to give Hashem a lot of pleasure. It's like the cup of vinegar. It's also a cup. It's also a way to bring godliness onto this earth. And it's actually like a seesaw. When a person sits down on the seesaw, then that side goes down, but immediately the other side of the seesaw goes all the way up. So every time we struggle and we say no to Amalek, to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil, what's happening is the Kedusha, the side of the Kedusha, is getting an elevation, a great elevation. And this elevation is not just a personal thing. It actually affects the entire universe. And every time we say no, every time we push down, every time we push away Amalek, we're actually making the whole world holier. We're making the whole world a place where it's easier to serve Hashem. So if one person in Tom's River says no to the Yetzer Hara, this makes the world more holy. So someone in Australia who's struggling may all of a sudden have a push to do the right thing because the whole world became more spiritual from the first person pushing down and saying no to the evil. So in conclusion, we have to know that there are two cups. There's the wine and there's the vinegar. There's two different ways of serving Hashem, the avodah of a tzaddik, or the avodah of a Beinoni, the avodah of holiness and no struggle, or the avodah of struggling. And through struggling, we actually have a bonus, because not only do we end up with doing the mitzvah, with winning the battle, not only do we have the end result, but we also have the struggle that came before, which actually gives Hashem so much pleasure. So the next time you're struggling, instead of being upset about it, realize that it's actually an opportunity to become closer to Hashem and to grow greater and greater.